Hi, my name's James Kello. I'm a London beer sommelier. Welcome to the Bermondsey Beer Mile. So here we are on Druid Street at one end of the Bermondsey Beer Mile. We're going to start with Southwark Brewery. Okay, here we are in Southwark Brewery. I'm about to speak with the owner, Peter.
I'm Peter Jackson. I'm the original founder and managing director of Southwark Brewing Company. It's the final part of my career in the brewing industry. For 35 years I've worked in big breweries, so it's quite nice to do my own at the end of that. But we've been here 5 years now, and we are a small to medium sized micro, I would say. We're not one of the big boys.
Okay, so one of the things I love about Southwark Brewery every time I come down here on the tour is the fact that they are modern and also a traditional brewery at the same time. So what I mean by that is they're making the modern American pale ales, IPAs, these sort of modern craft styles, but they're also making some of the tastiest cask beer in London as well. He's going to tell us about one of his best-selling beer, their LPA London Pale Ale.
LPA was the first beer we brewed, and I unashamedly say it's a beer brew for me. It's easy drinking, light, it's citrusy, it's made with citrus hops, my favourite. 4% ABV, so it's quite sessionable. Sessionable is my favourite word in the brewing industry. I can tell you over those 5 years I have. But it's easy drinking, it's modern style, traditional cask beer, and it's also local.
Stop number 2, this is the Barrel Project, which is the tap room of the London Beer Factory. So yeah, the London Beer Factory is a brewery started by two brothers, Ed and Sim Cotton. This is their tap room, as I say, the Barrel Project. And as well as being where you can drink their beer, this is also where their barrel aging program takes place. Barrel aging, mixed, spontaneous and wild fermented beers, aged beers, dark beers as well, made away to be drunk later on. So I'm here with Brain and Lou. Brain heads up the London Beer Factory's Barrel Project. Brain, do you want to give a little idea of what that means, what you're doing here?
Cool, so essentially we make core range from our normal brewery, and then here is where we make the more interesting, more long-term kind of projects. We take beer that we brew just down the road, we ferment it on site in some stainless steel fermenters down this way. When that's finished fermenting, so typically 10 days or so, we move it to all of these lovely oak barrels that you can see all around. Wrap them back onto the stacks, and then they age for about 12 to 18 months typically. We taste them once a month, decide which ones we think are going to go nicely together, pull them back down into a finished product, and then we package it, naturally carbonate it, and put it in keg.
Right. So you mainly through here, is it through the Barrel Project?
Mostly, we make a really small amount of beer. The quality is quite high and it's quite a complex product that we make, but because we only make a very tiny amount of it, most of it goes through here.
Yeah.
The rest of it goes through our online store, which is kind of, typically we only do maybe 100 litres in bottles and then some kegs.
Okay, thanks very much.
Possible to run something like this size as a financial business that is running in green. Like Wildfire, like Rivers Brewery was, they don't make heaps of money, and it's still 100% a passion project, as is all beer. We grow beers, we make a lot of money because it's still.
You're probably in the wrong game, aren't you? Yeah.
For sure. So you can run it financially, but it's definitely your setup, your delays. Like when you put your first beer in the barrel to when you bottle your first beer is probably in excess of a year and a half. So it's a long-term setup where you're not seeing any kind of cash flow in the first year.
What you're saying is, if someone's coming in here and buying a beer, in the Barrel Project, in the tap room, or if they're buying a beer from the supermarket from this brewery, essentially you're a patron of the arts at that point.
Absolutely.
You're helping to fund the creation of the Barrel Project up here. Yeah.
You are supporting, well, me myself personally and my love of beer.
Yeah.
And we treat each of these barrels as has its own story, has its own evolution, I guess, over time. Sometimes they go through phases of not tasting great and then tasting good, and it's kind of, you get to know them and then you get to make decisions on whether they'll stick around for a long time. So you're supporting a passion project that is very slow and very difficult to maintain, and really need, you factor in the first year probably 15 to 20% losses. The beer that we make here is a huge loss and huge potential for failure. it's definitely a little bit more interesting than factory work.
Yeah.
Moving from essentially lab cultured mixed firm saisons into purely wild ales with wild yeast. It's happening very shortly. The beers are tasting really good, so that's been my pet project, and I'm really kind of looking forward to that point. It's come full circle because obviously it is such a long waiting period between start the project and actually seeing some kind of.
And with these these wild and these mixed fermentation beers, are you always trying to create something new? Do you ever try and create classics that you've enjoyed elsewhere? So I don't know, say Flanders Red or Gers. Are you ever trying to make recreate something you found delicious elsewhere, or is it always something that's brand new to you?
We dabble in a little bit of both. So we use age hops. We use a similar grist to a lot of Gers, Lambic-based breweries. We create a darker based beer that is similar flavour-wise and aromatically to Flanders Red and stuff like that. Then we branch into using New World hops. We do a lot of dry hops, mixed ferm saisons. You've got light acid and then a hoppy, punchy kind of like aroma and flavour. We do a bread IPA, which is pretty New World, and that's kind of a fun little experiment we play on. So we dabble in and out of new and old, and we do have our two base work streams are a blonde base and a dark base, and then we play with some other varieties as we go on.
And so obviously this is the brewery and this is where you're fermenting or you're blending. Do you ever come down on Saturday to the tap room to see how your beers are getting enjoyed? Listening in on a couple of conversations maybe, and then try and read people's faces as they take their first sip of the beer you made?
Absolutely. I love Friday afternoon eavesdrop, so as soon as I finish, everything gets put away, we mop the floor, we clean up, I'll perch the bar and just kind of listen in as see how the bartenders are going, see what they're serving, see what they recommend, and see how it's received. Get some honesty.
Good luck on Saturday. Thanks, mate. Going past the Porsche garage here. Love the old classics. Just thought I'd stop here outside Hyber Beers. This is their HQ. They don't actually brew here, they brew off-site, but Hyber specialise in beers made with honey. Not sure if anyone's about today, we'll just take a look inside. Hello. So I'm here with Hannah Rose, founder of Hyber Brewery. Hannah, you've got quite obviously an unusual operation in terms of the BERKMONDSEYbeerMileV beers made primarily with honey as the ingredient, the key ingredient. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So I think when I'd worked in brewing for years, and when the idea for Hyber came along was really after going beekeeping, doing an urban beekeeping course, and originally feeling like, oh wow, this is just amazing. It's the first time I felt as passionate about something as when I kind of first started to do beer tastings, thinking, wow, there's a beer out there for everybody. And in finding out a bit more about bees and realising, on how cool they are, which I think most people agree with, it was really getting to grips with honey as an ingredient and starting to think about honey as a raw sugar that has its own taste and flavour properties, and just how interesting that would be to play with from a fermentation and a brewing perspective. So I definitely, I guess, being a beer person, I had people always say, oh, what's the difference between honey beer and mead?
Yeah.
Mead is very much a honey wine, so maybe honey water yeast. Some breweries might not use water either. Whereas honey beer for me is that excitement of, rather than any additional sugar content, how could you find a real balance between your local raw honey, which is, we work with urban beekeepers and we work with beekeepers in Yorkshire, it's all raw independent. How can we get the balance of those flavours with our cereals and our hops, and if you were fermenting with this raw natural sugar, where would the flavour profile go?
That would be my question. So the honey that you brew with, you said some of it is urban, so London, local here, and some is from elsewhere in the country, and how do you decide which honeys you're going to use, or my understanding with honey is that the blossoms, the flowers that the bees pollinate, that's what really affects the flavour. So do you use a variety, I guess?
Yeah, so I guess way back, when I started doing the recipe development, originally it was just urban London honey that I was using for the trial brews, and that was really small scale, just a bit of fun, just to learn. And urban London honey is quite citrusy. The bees have been feeding on lime and acacia trees that the Victorians planted all over the city in all urban areas of the UK. So that massively varietals of honey based on the forage type. That might be a flower, a tree, a herb. So there's a whole other conversation there that we can have. But really it was just the open honey that I was travelling with originally, and it had these lovely citrusy notes when you tasted it. And I
It works so well in beer, of course. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. But it was quite weak on the nose, so it was just finding, starting to learn which honey varietals maybe complemented one another, and using different honeys in the way that some brewers might use different hops. So
Yorkshire,
an aroma hop and a flavour hop, like as crude as that is to describe it in that way.
Sure.
That was sort of the way that it started to develop with the, fermenting different types of honey in the recipe.
great, wow. So here's another little stop on the route I've got to point out. We've got Port Cidery here. So traditionally cideries were, rural in the countryside where the apples were grown. This is one of the first examples, I guess, of an urban cidery here in London. Cider made on site, pressed and made on site. This here at the Marquis of Wellington. This is a place where usually we'll meet our guests on the tours. Really nice pub. It is a chain pub, part of the Enterprise Inns group, but they've done a really great job of kind of being inclusive and stocking beers from all the local breweries. It's a real sort of hub for the area. A lot of the brewers will come here and drink after hours and that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, good spot. But yeah, it's still on Drury Street. We're just going past the Ansbach and Holiday. Was the brewery, now the tap room, not open at the moment, but I'm not sure if they're opening this weekend. But yeah, definitely one of the kind of one of the sort of the original craft breweries on the BERKMONDSEYbeerMileV3 here on Drury Street. But yeah, we just out here outside the bottle shop, as was unfortunately closed down. Craft beer is not a high margin business, and that's why it's so your support for your local breweries, the breweries down here on the BERKMONDSEYbeerMileV3 is so important. Yeah, in this little bit on Enid Street here, you've got some of the best known breweries on the mile. So here, Bristol Brewery, you've got Cloudwater, Manchester, who've opened up a tap room here. You've got Brew by Numbers, who I think was the second brewery on the mile after the Colonel. London, Sweden, which is a craft beer tap featuring Swedish beers. So yeah, let's have a little look. So we're just here with Simon, the taproom manager for Brew by Numbers, down here on Enid Street. It's kind of fully set up, just a quick quiz, just wander through.
Yeah, we're basically using this as our warehouse space at the moment. Today and tomorrow we're going to be cleaning it all up and turning it up into a bar.
Yeah. Brew by Numbers Brewery, this is Tom here. We're going to take a little wander down.
So just preparing some cherries for sour beer we're making, and these are cherries that are grown in bed, separating the stones from them to infuse them, so we're using the whole cherry skin stones.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the brew house.
Yeah.
So we've been here since 2013, May. Before that we're bringing a basement on Southern Bridge Road. And we've just, this is our original site. We shoehorned in as many tanks as we can. So yeah, we can produce sort of 42,000 litres a month at the moment. And then we have on site 75 and in Beckham as well. So this is where it all happens.
Right. So I'm here with Reese, over at Bianca Road Brewery. Reese, do you want to tell us a little bit about, how long it's been here, your setup, about the brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started Bianca 4 years ago in Beckham.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of sites since then, but we moved to this site on London Street last year. So we've been here a year now. We specialise in sort of West Coast American style IPAs and ales, but then we do a lot of specials that sort of branch outside of that, East Coast, and experimenting with different niche strains and different hop varieties and styles around that core range.
Great tap room you've got in here. You guys never do get the chance to come down in person, but they've actually got kind of two arches. It's a really lovely space. So you've got. As I say, out of most of the breweries down here, you've probably got one of the better tap rooms for the social distancing, drinking safely. Yeah.
We've got a bit of space, which is great. But we'll see how we go.
So we just reached at the end of Enid Street here, and this is called Spa Road. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Spa Road Terminus. whole area before the railways came in. Kind of like not exactly a slum, but there was loads of business, loads of activities going on, and to try and come through with the railway through here would have just been too much hard work. So essentially they realised the best thing to do was lift it up, elevate it. So as I say, first elevated railway in the world, so a little bit of history. And the nice thing, my favourite things about Bermondsey actually is the you know, you don't have to look too hard, and the history just jumps out at you all over the place. And yeah, the railway itself and the railways in general, a large part of their development was actually to do with the transportation of beer around the country. So there's a certain, you know, circularity to that, and the fact that all of the arches that the breweries are in exist, trains just going by now, exist because of the elevated railways, and now these are, you know, the renaissance of small brewery brewing and craft brewing in this country taking place within those arches. Yeah, it's just a certain sort of pleasing circularity to that. So here we are, final third of the Bermondsey Beer Mile, Almond Road. Probably the least well-known little section of it, but it's also some of the best breweries on the mile. So let's have a little look down here as well. Yeah, we've got the Colonel Brewery here. Colonel Brewery, the original craft brewery on the Bermondsey Beer Mile. This is, I think, their third or maybe fourth location within the area. Yeah, very much still the gold standard in London craft beer. Let's go and have a little look. Here we have one of the few remaining Wimpeys in the UK. So I think they've actually reopened themselves a new Wimpey here. First brewery we get along here is Infinity, which is one of my favourite breweries. Yeah, I'm heads into Infinity Brewery. This is
yeah, so we've been going for just over 3 years now. We started in Tottenham, moved down to Bermondsey in the end of 2019. Yeah, we've been producing some nice sort of pale ales, IPAs, with focus on some Belgian stuff as well, some saisons, lime zest, coriander saison goes down really well. Just super drinkable, easy stuff that goes down well in the sun.
So here we are at Partisan Brewing, one of the original breweries on the Bermondsey Beer Mile. Let's have a look. So yeah, here we are at Partisan Brewery. I'm just chatting with Tom, who's the head brewer here.
Yeah, so we do predominantly bottles.
Yeah.
A lot of our trade pre-COVID was restaurants. So kind of throughout this, we've actually started doing it to can.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You've got your own canning line?
Not yet. So we're working. We were working with Group Numbers just during lockdown. Now that's kind of finished. We're going to get them the can in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
it goes very well.
So, but yeah, hopefully, I think we'll run a canning line and a bottling line in tandem. Because, like I said, a big part of our trade is restaurants. Restaurants don't like cans. So.
Well, yeah, no, exactly, and you know, getting them open even.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's still just finding their feet again, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you most excited about at the moment?
We are currently, I'll grab a bottle of it. We've got a new beer called Didi. So we used to have a cat called Adina.
Yeah.
And her nickname was Didi, but obviously we just Didi. We went here for 6 weeks, so we rehomed it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she...
In memoriam Didi.
Yeah, so she lived here, she was a working cat, so she was really good. And, but yeah, obviously it wasn't fair on her to leave her here by herself for that period of time. So yeah, we've done it. So DD is a DDH double dry hop ale. So this is the first, so we did a initial release as part of the Brugger. I think that didn't actually end up happening in lockdown.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is kind of the second iteration of it, and and then we've got a third iteration in Tangle when we go into cans. So the third one along, I think with each batch is going to get better. We're learning a lot.
Hopefully we can get that in a box and out to our customers as well. So yeah, thank you. So how many fermenters have you got?
We've got 7 now, so we did 6 months ago put in this 7th one here.
Yeah.
So 7 of these, they're all kind of max capacity, 3,000 litres to 30 we brew, depending on the style of ABV, I think anywhere between 24 heck and 30 heck kind of thing. So,
Fill us in a little bit about your special kettle as well.
As you can probably see, our hot kit isn't the most glamorous sort of brew houses out there. But our owner, Andy, I'm pretty sure he made it out of.
I heard he found it in a field.
Yeah, he said stories that it was part of an old nuclear reactor or something like that. But honestly, this thing, like the FVs, you'll have a skin warning. This thing is literally about that big. So it's whatever is perfect.
So yeah, come the apocalypse, hide in your kettle. I hope you've enjoyed your virtual tour at Bermondsey Beer Mile. We've been to quite a few places. I hope you've enjoyed your beers, of course, as well. Thank you so much for supporting independent British beer, London beer. These guys really need your support. Please keep ordering. If you've enjoyed them, please keep ordering them. Very happy to field any questions. Contact me online as well. I'm sure the breweries are as well. We're going to be also coming back, be visiting this tour, revisiting the room, revisiting these breweries as we go along. So yeah, please do, check back in again as well, because we'll be having new iterations with different beers as we go along. But for now, that's me, James Kelly, saying thank you very much for your virtual Bermondsey Beer Tour.